Let every person be subordinate to the higher authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority opposes what God has appointed, and those who oppose it will bring judgment upon themselves.
In the American Republic, the people are the highest authority referred to in Romans 13. Quote, "At the Revolution, the sovereignty devolved on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country." Unquote. Chisholm v. Georgia in the Supreme Court, 1793. Any government only acts with the sovereign's consent, and that is what the Declaration of Independence says. Men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Clergy, one of the biggest tools that they will have in helping calm the public down or obey the law is the Bible itself, specifically Romans.
My friends, you are free. You are free to respect and appreciate the authority of the government that God gives to you. Honor the king. I'm free to make myself a slave.
First heresy. According to the first commandment, God's people are not subjects of or enslaved to earthly rulers. They are free to live under His governance. Quote, "I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. You shall have no other gods besides me." This liberty from capricious earthly government is a right also authorized by God under Romans 13 to the founders of the American Republic.
What's the very first word at verse 13? How many of you love to submit? The way political talk comes out of your mouth, the way you talk even about a president whom you don't respect, that kind of talk should not be coming out of Christians' mouths. Honor the king. Do it anyway, whether the king deserves it or not. Even bad governments do God's work by keeping even a semblance of order in the streets.
Here is what the letter to the Romans says about those who teach the blatant contradiction that evildoers are engaged in God's work. Quote, "They became vain in their reasoning, and their senseless minds were darkened. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and revered and worshipped the creature rather than the Creator."
Now you have the king you want, a king the Lord has given you. If you fear the Lord and worship Him, if you are obedient to Him and do not rebel against the Lord's command, if both you and the king who rules you follow the Lord your God, well and good. But if you do not obey the Lord, and if you rebel against His command, the Lord will deal severely with you and your king and destroy you. Honoring the king is fine, so long as the king does not violate God's law. Even God's beloved King David was not exempt from the rule of God's law, as God told Samuel. Quote, "I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. And if he does wrong, I will correct him with the rod of men, with human chastisement." End quote.
And even today, the very first promise a British monarch must make before being crowned is to uphold God's law, to which the monarch is as much subject as any other citizen.
Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel?
All this I promise to do.
Pharaoh understood that God's law, requiring freedom for God's people, was superior to his law, and, after some serious arm-twisting, Pharaoh begged Moses to take God's people and all that belonged to them and, quote, "go worship the Lord as you said, and be gone." End quote. Here are some kings who overruled the freedom and consent of God's people, and some of those heroes and heroines who put things right. This is Charles I of England, who believed to the moment he was beheaded that he could rule however he wished by divine right. Meet George III, who believed that he could abuse the American colonists in any manner he wished by divine right, until, after some serious arm twisting, he admitted he could not. Like George III in England, Louis XVI in France was so hard-headed about his divine right to treat God's law arbitrarily that it took a revolution to show him that his head was not too hard for the guillotine. In Ireland, Eamon de Valera and Michael Collins overturned centuries of oppressive British rule and created the first Irish Republic. Mahatma Gandhi withdrew his consent to oppressive British administration, and without violence, he simply said no and toppled the British Empire in India.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton, seated, and Susan B. Anthony refused to consent to a government that excluded women from civic life by denying them the vote. They got the 19th Amendment added to the Constitution. Elizabeth Eckford withheld her consent from the Arkansas government, which would deny her a full education, and with dignity befitting a sovereign, she walked into the Little Rock High School. Rosa Parks withheld her consent from Alabama, when she refused to surrender her seat to a white gentleman and moved to the back of the bus. And Martin Luther King, like Gandhi, an advocate of nonviolence, made it all stick, and the rest is history. God is no respecter of persons or kings. He tolerates kings as long as they do not violate his commandment that his people live unenslaved to earthly government. In God's view, there is only one king who rules by divine right, and the government, God's government, rests on his shoulders. Any minister who teaches otherwise is in heresy.